Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming, BetterCloud. We have a very, very special edition of our all hands meeting today. For those who don't know who I am, I work for BetterCloud. My name is Devin Domingo. I work at our EAG team. I'm a member of our inaugural Diversity Council. We've been very, very excited to get special guests to come on and speak to a lot of different diversity topics. I'm very, very excited to have our hopeful first of many. Just so everybody knows my role during this discussion, I will be playing the role as a moderator, asking some groups that are LGBTQ group the Rainbow Mafia has come up with. In addition, I'll be taking some audience questions in our weekly All Hands channel towards the end. So if you want to leave any questions, we'll take a quick look at that. So with that, I'd love to read our special guest's bio quick. Peppermint, or Miss Peppermint, is an American actress, singer, television personality, drag queen, and activist. She's best known as a fixture on the New York City nightlife scene as a runner-up on the 9th season of RuPaul's Drag Race. In 2018, Peppermint made her Broadway debut in the Go-Go's inspired musical Head Over Heels, playing the role of Pythio. She was the first trans woman to originate a principal role on Broadway. And her most recent work includes hosting Black Queer Town Hall, a virtual event celebrating Black LGBTQ plus performers, educators, and artists. Welcome, Peppermint. Thank you for being here. So wanted to first say happy late Pride. I know it's been a few weeks. I know we're a little bit late to the game, but I want to know, how was your Pride weekend? How have you been commemorating?
Pride has been very different this year, obviously, and it's been great. I'm continuing to celebrate Pride, I think, just like on the daily. As someone who works as a drag queen, I guess I can't really escape. It's kind of like always Pride. Um, but I've been great, obviously, staying inside during the quarantine and trying to keep myself entertained and try to stay safe and all those things. But it's also been great to be able to have more moments to connect with people virtually than I ever dreamed I would be having on a summer day from my living room, over Zoom.
I know this is like a crazy world we're living in right now, especially with like COVID and all these, social restrictions in place, just making sure everybody's like staying safe. I think one thing that drew us a lot to you as we were talking with speakers is like, Peppermint is somebody who we feel like really celebrates Pride culture through and throughout, and has somehow still managed to with a lot of our queer communities still celebrating that essence of Pride, even as we're all sitting from our living rooms or wherever we are in the world today. um, you know, and we want to know, like, how are you able to like find all this light and energy and still be like a leading champion of the community given all of these COVID restrictions in place?
I think that's just part of my personality. I think people were, Bianca Del Rio used to always joke that I was just like too sweet and too nice. I can't explain exactly what happened to me or when it happened to me or why, but I know that for some reason it was just instilled in me at a very early age to be focused on our community, with things like AIDS and HIV education and prevention. With obviously marriage equality was a big thing that I was fighting very hard for, even though uh, and obviously now trans rights and rights of folks that are non-binary and gender non-conforming. And so the fight continues, and I recognize that. And so I think the COVID situation has thrown everyone for a loop and had made us sort of reorganize and sit around and think how we were going to do this. But now that we've realized that this is something that we're going to have to continue to deal with down the line, it's important for us to figure out new ways to connect with each other and continue to work or continue to do our business. And in that, I've seen a renewed interest in these conversations and being able to participate in them. So I'm really grateful that I'm able to be here with you today.
Oh, and we're more than happy to have you. And I think it's very important to like highlight the fact that like these issues just do not stop. Like no matter physical location, no matter where we may be right now, like there's still like a drive and a fervor behind celebrating our trans communities, our Black communities, our gay communities, wherever that is on the spectrum, still being able to fight for those rights and fight for causes that we know that are critical to survival. I heard a lot about the Queer Liberation March. and your role there leading from the streets of New York City. I'd maybe share with us, like, what was the feeling of like leading that march and, you know, bringing so many like important communities together?
It was exhilarating, and I really didn't think that I was sort of bemoaning myself last year after World Pride and the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, that I did feel like exhausted and completely like, uh, just depleted of all my pride energy that I needed to kind of, stock up on. And I remember saying, "Oh my goodness, if I don't ever see a pride like that again, that's that busy, then it'll still be too soon." And so it's just really interesting personally that I've had the opportunity to participate in a pride that was so busy where there was no time to stop, and everything was like, hurry, put on this t-shirt, pose, now put on that t-shirt and go and run, say pride. And it was just like that. Not a lot of connection, there wasn't as much for personally time for me to focus on the reverence of pride. Especially given that it was the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising. And so now this year, having been the 51st anniversary and the 50th anniversary of the first Pride March, it was obviously very apropos for the march to take on a completely new meaning. It wasn't the Gay Pride Parade, it was the Queer Liberation March for Black Lives Matter. And that was, honestly, for the first time, this was the official Pride Parade event that has happened in the city for obviously 50 years. And this is the first time that I ever felt my identity, or something that I resonated with as my identity, being central to the Pride festivities. And that's not because I feel like I'm the queen, although. I think it's more that I am able to, we've celebrated so many other types of folks in the past, and to be very blunt, most of the folks that have been celebrated in the past that were central to the Pride Parade, the person on the poster, the person, on the float, was a cisgender gay white man, and which is lovely. I wasn't there for all 50 of those years. I was celebrating for at least 20 or 30 of them. And so this year it felt very different. And obviously the timing was just right. And so it really allowed me, and I think a lot of clearly thousands of other people, to engage with Pride and connect with a Pride event that not only spoke to the seriousness of what we've been talking about, but also, I think, may be more in line with what the Pride looked like 51 years ago, or 50 years ago at the first march. And so I'm really grateful for that.
I'm really happy that like we're talking about this like huge difference between World Pride, which was for New York City just this like huge event that attracted I don't know how many million, it felt like millions of people.
The parade was still going on after midnight, like 1 a.m. The parade was still happening. I said, "Oh my word."
Yeah, this is some corporate sponsorship deals going real deep, going real long.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're
now
like, you're going to stay up until our corporate dollar is spent. Keep walking.
And now it's like, wait a second, we're going back to what Pride, I think, really parallels what it felt like 51 years ago. Meanwhile, most of us are celebrating it from our living rooms, but to just come back to that message of like, this is queer liberation. This is about messages around how queer people have been treated unfairly by authority figures, and feeling those messages and those parallels. Like, I mean, I want to actually talk a little bit more about that, like kind of the parallel messaging of this year's Pride and what it was as the Stonewall riots happened now 51 years ago. I mean, for those I think on this call who don't know about the Stonewall riots, it's really the center of a lot of the civil rights explosion coming out of New York, as it came to gay rights, as it came to lesbian rights and bisexual rights and trans rights. This is where you really see an impetus of change. of basically all these underground gay bars in New York City saying, no more, police, you cannot come in and invade our space and tell us how to live our lives. But now we're still facing a very similar message and something really against the LGBT community today. And I'm kind of curious, like, what has been your take on this, like, huge parallel today versus 51 years ago?
The winds of change sort of caught us off guard. There was plenty of people that were, I think, still sort of resting in their laurels after marriage equality, not to keep harping on marriage equality. So it was pretty much gays in the military and gays getting married. There wasn't really much focus on reproductive issues and rights as related to queer individuals, both cis women, trans men, and people who are assigned female at birth and who have uteruses. So I think that since we in all of the energy and time and attention and money and focus, which was obviously necessary to fight all of the discrimination that we were pouring into conversations about marriage equality, it sort of left the back door open, the window open for other people to see our vulnerabilities when it comes to some of these other issues that they are attacking us on today. We can't get them on marriage equality, but the trans community is very wide open. So let's go and ban them from the bathroom, ban them from the military, attempt to make it legal to fire them, take away their health care. Like, this is a whole litany of things. And so it's been appalling. I've clutched my pearl. I don't even know where my pearls are, and I'm clutching them. It's been equally upsetting, but it's also been very encouraging. And I'm guessing that all these things happening are what we need to really inspire us to get off our butts. I remember thinking, it was only a few years ago that I was thinking, oh my gosh, any oppressed groups, fight for civil rights are doomed because we're all like on our phones, not paying attention, no one's connecting, no one seems motivated to do anything past just maybe reposting a picture or a hashtag. I was kind of dismayed by that was sort of the extent of the level of investment that people were willing to make with regards to all of these types, any social issue. In light of COVID, I again was also sitting and saying, if Tiger King is the best thing that we're going to get out of this corona, and comes opportunities for all of us to engage around Black Lives Matter and really starting to see the intersectionality that literally exists in my body as a person of color who is queer, who is trans. All of these things, all of these issues are like so tightly woven. They're inseparable, right? Even though I hear them discussed almost as the antithesis to each other. The Black community versus the LGBT community, they're never the same. And I'm living proof of that, and I'm not the only one, obviously. So it's been comforting, it's been encouraging, it's been affirming to see people in the greater LGBT community, regardless of how they identify, regardless of what race they are, participating in this very timely conversation. We can't address homophobia if we're not going to address misogyny. I think homophobia is kind of just a different brand of sexism and misogyny. It's obviously layered. We can't address misogyny if we're not going to address it across the board. Why aren't we talking about Breonna Taylor the same way that we're talking about George Floyd? We can't address trans issues if we're not addressing, again, misogyny and the patriarchy. These things are all combined, and it's absolutely impossible for us to get to whatever the finish line is unless we actually address each and every one of those things. And I think this is the closest we've ever come.
I love that you're highlighting this like need for intersectionality in our conversation, because I think this is becoming more and more of a concept for a lot of Americans that may or not have not been familiar, right? Like, even just like for myself, like I'm a white cis gay man, and I'm lived my experiences of white cis gay man. And in order for me to open up my boundaries, open up this field of communication, educate myself, It involves having conversations. It involves being more of a member of the community and building on that allyship that our LGBTQ was originally founded upon, and now bringing that into 2020, like we are now back at the table, kind of all collectively having this one big conversation. Black lives, Black trans lives, gay lives, whatever kind of your individual experience has been around all these horrible events that have been evolving in our political sphere. Like everybody's bringing that to the table, but we're only as strong as our allyship around that table. There was one quote that you had said where it was from the New York Times and mentioned that a win from one group and one identity doesn't necessarily equal an automatic win for the other. And I think that sums up a lot of, I think, how the trans community has felt around a lot of these recent victories. And I'm like wondering, like, what are some ways that like you've learned working with allies? Like, how can other people like really learn how to champion another ally's issues when it's needed the most?
Stop viewing them as an ally. Allyship really does imply that you can come and wave your sign. Oh, I gotta go back. Bye. Okay, you got this. Okay, I'll see you later. Good luck. Like that's allyship. Hope you're doing well. Just checking on you. Okay, you good? All right, I'm here until 1, you know, and that's allyship. You can check out, you can go back to your life that is almost by definition not directly affected by whatever the issues are that we're talking about. And I think the best way for an ally to really put in the amount of energy that it will clearly take for us to get to wherever we're trying to go is to stop viewing yourself as an ally. If it disgusts you to see an unarmed Black man killed by the police officer, let's imagine that is your family member, regardless of what race they are. If you're looking at unarmed Black man, if you're looking at a trans person, if you're looking at a gay person, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's horrible for them, the one thing that's true is that it's not happening to you. And so if it's not happening to you and you're not targeted, then you need to use that privilege, the privilege of it not happening to you, and spread that to benefit the people that it is happening to. If you care, if that's what you're really concerned about, that it not happen to them. And allow yourself to be one of our community. If the end of this story, whatever it is, I believe is not going to be like some people came and helped the gays and then they all went their separate directions. It's not it. The story is going to be we all living here, and what hurts one of us hurts all of us, regardless of your race, your gender, your sexuality, or your disability status, whatever that means. You are affected equally. And so I think consider yourself, to all the allies out there, I would say consider yourselves a part of the LGBTQIA+ for Black Lives Matter community.
No, I love that message of like allyship isn't just about a thought exercise. It's not about just like saying you're an ally, reposting that picture on Instagram, just because you need to do it for your own kind of individual sake, so you can mentally dust this off and say, I'm good. That's not the message that we want. It's more so taking that behavior, taking those stories you're hearing and, actually giving back, whether it's being at the front lines, whether it's donating to great causes, whether it's and doing this on not just like a one-off basis, but doing this as a consistent living your life commitment. And I think one thing that you showed to us, especially with this Pride Month, was the Black Queer Town Hall as like a celebration of like all of these this intersectionality between Black lives and queer lives and trans lives all coming together in one room, putting all these thoughts, these feelings and behaviors into performances, into very nice talks, and just really getting an opportunity to not only hear those stories but also participate and work with other Black, queer, trans artists in the community. I think you led a very successful intersectional event, and just bringing that to the forefront. Like, what was your experience leading this kind of event, and channeling all these thoughts into actual like celebrations of all these Black, queer, trans lives?
Look, the reason why we did Black Queer Town Hall, for those that don't know, of the 300 BetterCloud employees, please go and watch Black Queer Town Hall. It's on YouTube. You can search for it. It's a 3-day event, and this was spawned by myself and Bob the drag queen, basically out of a need to see Black joy celebrated, because we have seen so many instances of violence and all these horrific stories that had been coming out during the quarantine, but obviously have been coming out way before the quarantine. It's depressing. But it's necessary for us to see that because it's the truth. But what is also the truth is that we are magnificent beings, that we have talents, we have things to contribute, we got things to say. And I know that we've been a part of many conversations, Bob and I, where we were feeling sort of obliged to or obligated to talk about these atrocities over and over and over and over again. And I remember how sort of rough that was on my psyche, and Bob expressed on theirs as well. And we really just wanted a great opportunity to celebrate Black queer excellence. And so we decided to kind of put together our own 3-day event that would do just that. We wanted to have speakers, we wanted to have performances and everything. And it was really modeled after Obama's Black Town Hall. I don't know if you saw that. And it was wonderful. We were able to get some wonderful people on board. And our purpose for doing it wasn't just to raise money for charity. Raising money for charity is so necessary, but we didn't feel right asking queer Black folks who wanted to participate in this conversation to donate their time for free while we raise money for a different charity. We wanted to put the pressure on the rest of the community to raise money, to continue raising money for charity, continue donating to charity. And we wanted to funnel money to get these performers who have not been paid for 3 months to get them paid well. And that was what this was, a celebration of this Black queer excellence, art, and talent and conversation, a chance to heal and grieve and love and celebrate. And it was an opportunity to do all those things and raise some money for those people. So we raised over $250,000 for this event, which paid the people behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, all the Black queer folks that we hired to be involved in this, our speakers, our moderators, the panelists, performers, obviously, the drag queens. And we took 15% of that, which is over $20,000, to the Oprah Project, which was our charity effort. And so how has it changed behavior? I don't know, but I know that some of the conversations I think were hopefully insightful, at least for people to watch. And some of the performances were not only entertaining, but I think incredibly poignant. Shia Diamond was our headliner this year. And it was a beautiful emotional expression. And we decided we were going to do another one. Not only do we have one coming up for Minneapolis, which is obviously a city that's very relevant in the conversation these days, but we've also are planning one for next year. And I think it was a success.
We'll share that with our BetterCloud side. I think I also want to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about some of your experiences in your early career on RuPaul's Drag Race a bit, where you talked about how you were head cheerleader back in high school and how there was this altercation with like one of the bullies from the basketball team. And, I'm just kind of curious, what's some advice for maybe folks who are struggling with this concept of coming out?
I think it definitely is important to know that whatever I even remember saying this on Drag Race, the feelings that you have that are conjuring up inside are real and correct. I say nurture those feelings, and when it's safe, maybe look into finding a circle, a community of people, whether it's in person or online today, obviously today. And then, basically build a little nest so that when you do, you have a nice place that will support you and love you and nurture you. And I think that's important. And there are more communities available now than ever. And so I do think it's really important to find that community, regardless of how nice and accepting you think your friends and family are. It's good to involve them, but it's also good to have people around you who've had similar experiences.
for those at BetterCloud, we have the Rainbow Mafia. But, if you ever need advice or you ever want to join or participate, we'll have more events and things to come soon on that front. And of course, we'll be your chosen family hero at work. So I think it's just very important to highlight that. I think as we are approaching time, I want to transition a bit and even I want to ask you a fun question. It has nothing to do with any of
Okay.
this. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
I would probably want to fly. I would be probably the best way to travel right now without having to sit next to someone.
Oh yeah, the socially distanced cold suit just to kind of get you
Yeah.
get you wherever you want. I would love it too. Um, so now I want to transition to talking about some of the questions we've gotten from our folks joining and viewing today. So one question coming in, a lot of people may not have a full grasp of the queer community. What's a stereotype of our community that you hope goes away within the next decade?
It's so general, but the stereotype that all of our experiences are the same. Like everyone may not have those same goals, same path and history, same set of experiences. And so I think it's important to note our similarities and provide space for us to have those similarities and things in common. But it certainly doesn't necessarily kind of allow someone else to make choices for us with the assumption that we all have the same experiences.
So many queer people struggle with internalized queerphobia due to years of mental and sometimes physical abuse from cis straight counterparts in school, work. If you're comfortable, what are some techniques that you use to diffuse some of those such situations?
If it's physical, like as in violent, I would definitely say get away from the situation. Intimate partner violence is probably more prevalent than we would care to talk about or than we do acknowledge. And it's no less of an cis in a queer relationship, a romantic partner or casual sexual partnership than it is in a cis hetero partnership or casual encounter. And so one group that I think has done some great work is the Anti-Violence Project. If we're talking about ways to kind of strategically get out of these situations or avoid a future situation with someone that we know is already kind of in our lives, someone we know, an intimate partner. And so that's a great organization. I think it's avp.org. I think one of the things that is important and one of the things that can be useful, and again, all of these sort of experiences or situations can be very different. And so I think overall, you need to make sure that you're in a situation that is safe for you, both physically and emotionally, and go towards that, whatever that is. But I do think in terms of handling someone who's like a bully, calling on those allies who are around you and letting them know what is happening and getting that support. Because one of the things that the bully is going to try to do by definition is put you on the spot in a way that highlights other people and showcases that they have power over you publicly. That's what bullying is let me show everyone else that I can basically dominate or control you. I think that's the best thing. One of the things you can do is try to get those people on your side.
So maybe I think as we close things out, I really wanted to thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your lived experience, sharing with us ways. I feel like I speak for not just myself when I say this, but like I feel like I've learned so much today speaking to you. And we're really, really really thankful you've put so much thought and what you're doing to drive our Black trans community forward, and really taking again allyship into action, which are I think all lived principles that I think we could all do a lot better on. So thank you so much today on educating us and telling us your story, and we really hope to see more of your work in the near future, and we're very excited for what's to come.
Everyone at BetterCloud, I really do appreciate you. Thank you, Nora, and Danny and Brian and Spencer and Jeremiah and Giselle I appreciate it. And thank you so much, Devin, for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll hope to see you again soon.